Hello everyone and welcome to the Mylio Photos Coffee Break. My name is Angela Andrew. I'm a product evangelist for Mylio, and today we're going to go over quick wins for organizing your scanned family photos. This is going to give you a bit of a recap of some of the things I talked about last week at the Roots Tech Conference, which was all about genealogy and family history. I discussed metadata management and some of the important details you're going to want to add to your scanned family photos to make them searchable and easier to find. Before we jump into today's topic, I do want to let you know that I will be out on vacation all of next week, so there will not be any live Q&A and we will not have a coffee break next week. I will be back the week after that and we will pick up right where we left off. We'll have some great topics coming up for you through the end of the month and obviously going into April as well. So in the meantime, if you have questions, please feel free to visit the community.mylio.com. That will be monitored by Lori, by JC, and some of our other staff members. So there are always places to ask your questions and get those answers, even if I'm not able to join you live. So with that, I want to go ahead and jump into today's topic. And we're going to talk about quick wins for organizing your scanned family photos. So today what I want to do is cover a few things. We're going to talk about adding missing dates, tagging family members, organizing by location, and then I'll give you a few bonus tips and best practices that I've learned along the way with my own library. So let's go ahead and jump in and talk a little bit about metadata, because this is the core of getting your pictures organized, whether it's your modern pictures or your scanned family photos. So just to give you a little bit of a basis and background for what we're doing, what we want to do is add information to the pictures that we've brought into our Mylio Photos library. This is called metadata. And it's information that it's attached, and it has the who, what, when, and where of your photos. And what this does is it makes that information accessible to future generations. It also makes them searchable so you can find them when you need them. The way that Mylio Photos handles metadata is one of the best solutions out there that I've found. It saves all of this information in an industry standard XMP file that lives next to your photo. So any of the changes you make in Mylio Photos are what we call non-destructive. Your original file isn't changed, and all of those changes reside in that industry standard XMP file. And this could be read by a variety of other applications. So you're not just stuck and tied into a proprietary system. It's also, we follow standards set by the Family History Metadata Working Group. So if you have other genealogical and family history platforms that you use, much of what you add in Mylio Photos is also translatable and portable to those other systems. So XMP files are really pretty miraculous. They're an amazing way to store metadata, and that's how Mylio does it for you. So let's go ahead and go from there and talk a little bit about why this is important. And I'm sure you guys already know this, but we want to preserve those key details. We want to make sure that future generations know that who, what, when, and where of those photos. I can't tell you how many times I've gone through scanned family photos and I don't know what's going on there. Like, I look at it and I'm like, who are these people? What are they doing? When was this taken? I know they're somehow connected to me, but I wish I had more context. So as we're going through and dealing with our own scanned family photos, we want to make sure that those details are preserved for the next generation. So we gather the information that we can and we get those things saved so the next generation, you know, if they have questions, they know where to go. It also makes your stuff discoverable. So as you go through and you search in Mylio Photos, if you're looking for something specific, whether you're looking for a person, a place, a specific date, those things are all searchable. It's standardized for genealogy with those Family History Metadata Working Group standards. Mylio also has seamless integration with Family Search, which we're going to talk about a little bit more next month. We'll go in depth on that. And finally, it just future-proofs your collection. And that's really, I think, what a lot of us are out there to do. Make sure that these details are safe and secure for the next generation. All right, so what details should you preserve when you're scanning family photos? This list is kind of my go-to, and it's kind of in, it's actually not even in the priority of what I would do it. So my first priority would be people. I'm gonna go through probably first and tag the people in my library. If I have the option, I will also add the family search ID for those people. I will then go in and start working on dates. And I will get those as close as possible. For anything that I don't know, I will mark as undated. And then we can go ahead and add more precise date information as we find it. As we're going through, if we get those stories, you can add titles, captions, and keywords. and location and geotagging information. And then I just wanted to put in a little quick note there for file names, that if you use a clear, consistent name, that also makes things more searchable and easy to find later. So if somebody's just going through the file system, instead of seeing img_1234, they're going to see something that actually relates to what they're looking for. So let's go ahead and go in a little bit more in depth on adding those missing dates. So when we're adding dates, if we're talking about our modern pictures, these are automatically assigned by our digital cameras. But for our scanned images, we have to go in and fix those, because when you scan an image, the date in that image is going to be the date that it was scanned. So what I like to do, first of all, when I bring in a new batch of scanned images, is I mark them all as undated. This tells me I need to research these, and it also, if I'm looking at the calendar in my library, it doesn't have them mixed in with my modern pictures. From there, I can go in, and if I have a precise date, I can add an actual timestamp, or I can start adding those fuzzy dates, which are time frames, whether that's a date range, a month and a year, a season, a decade, and so forth. So let me go ahead and show you what this looks like inside of Mylio Photos. I have actually an account up right now that is an account that I'm sharing on a family plan with my parents. And my dad has been going through and doing a ton of organizing and scanning of my grandmother's photo albums. So I've got thousands of pictures now that need to be gone through, and all of this kind of work needs to be done. My mom's doing a little bit of it. I'm doing a little bit of it. My dad is just like, I'm scanning it. You guys take care of the rest. So there's a lot to be done here. So the first thing I want to do, I know some of these images have already gotten dated. I want to go ahead and find the ones that are modern dates that I know are not applicable, and I want to mark those as undated. So I'm going to go here and open up my sidebar, and I'm going to go into by date and by year, and I'm going to just go ahead and click on 2020s, because I know pretty much everything in here, with the exception of like these are notes that are modern, so I'm going to probably leave those alone. Well, they're pictures of old notes, but the pictures were taken recently. But the rest of these are not really much modern photos. So these ones are the photo albums, those are probably fine. But the rest of these are all what I would call undated. They're stuff that we need to go ahead and research. So I'm going to go ahead and select all. So click on one image, and I'm going to go ahead and just do a Command or Control A. You can see they all now have that blue border. I'm going to go through and let's see here. From all of these, I think what I'm going to do is just go ahead and go over to my info, and we're going to go here where it says date shown. Click on that ellipses, and we go here and we mark that as undated. We'll go ahead and click save. And now those are going to be all taken out of the modern part of the calendar. So now when I go into my calendar view and I scroll back here, I'm going to go ahead and pull this and go all the way down to the bottom. You can see we now have an undated section, and a bunch of other stuff has already been marked as undated. And then things that we have already assigned dates to now appear in the correct place in the calendar. So as we go through, we can go ahead and update these and get them into the right place so they're more searchable and easier to find by date. So this covers in the who, what, when, where scenario. This is our when. So another thing I can do here is if some things come in with some dates close but not precise, we can always update those. So I'm going to go to my folders view, and I'm going to go into this fast photo folder. This is the one my dad's been working out of. And he's done a really great job of labeling these with a range for the dates. And we're using the Epson Fast Photo Scanner, which does actually give you, to a point, corrected dates. So if I go here into this album and take a look at this picture, that's my parents and that's me right there. I can see that it put it in as January 1, 1978. Now, looking at this picture here, this was actually fall of 78. So what I can do is take this image, let me just make sure this is the same one. I'm going to go ahead and pull this out a little bit so I can see the full file name. And these are related images. So the fast photo, what it's doing is it's scanning the picture. It's doing an optimized version of the picture, and it is doing a scan of the back. So all three of these images I want to keep together, and I want to assign the same information to. So I can select those three images. I know that instead of being January 1, 1978, this is fall of 78. So I can go ahead and click that ellipses, go down here to season and year. And I haven't set up my settings for this, so let's go ahead and just say, take me to settings. This asks you to confirm for your country and your region what the first dates of seasons are for you. I'm going to go ahead and run with the default and say save. And then I can go ahead and exit out of there. Now I can go ahead and choose season and year. And I want to choose fall of 1978 and choose save. So those have now gotten me more precise dates. So the more research we do, the more we can go in and make these things better. So let me take a look here at the chat and see if there's any questions so far. I don't see anything just yet, but if you have questions as we're going along, please feel free to put those into the chat. I'll keep an eye on it. And it looks like Lori was able to join us, so she'll also be sharing some helpful links as we go through. All right, let's jump back over to the presentation and talk about tagging family members. And this is probably, like I said, one of the first things that I do when I bring in pictures because it is probably the most fun. And this helps us identify those people across generations. So when you're looking at those pictures and you don't know who's in them, it's because, unfortunately, the people who came before us maybe didn't have the time to sit there and write on the back of the picture who was in the picture, what was going on. And now if those people are gone and there's nobody around who recognizes what happened or who was there, that information can be lost. So we want to try to retrieve and preserve as much of that information as possible. So the way face recognition works in Mylio Photos is Mylio, when you're importing new media, it's looking for recognizable faces. When a recognizable face is found, it's put into the untagged portion of your people view. So you can go in there and find all of your untagged people, start naming those individual pictures. Once you've named somebody 5 to 10 times, you can then go into the batch tagging. It will group together similar faces and you can go through and move through those images much, much faster. So let me go ahead and show you what that looks like here really quick. So I'm here in my library and I'm going to go here to the people view. And you'll see up here, we've got over 6,000 images that are still yet untagged. So I'm going to go ahead and double click in there and that's going to zoom in on the faces and that'll let us tag some of these people. Now, these are pictures from my grandma's albums and admittedly, there are a lot of people in here I don't know. So hopefully my dad and my mom can address some of that, but let me go ahead and just scroll down and see if I can find one that I recognize. Let's see here. Let's just keep scrolling here. Okay, there we go. That's my Uncle Danny. I can go ahead and name him. And you can just select a group of images. So you don't have to select just one. And go ahead and click that drop down, type in a name or select it from the list, and add that name to the program. Once you've done that a bit, you can go over to the batch tagging, which is this little tool here. Click on the tools and choose batch face tagging. And what this does is group together all of those similar faces. And I love this because it allows you to go through things much, much faster. Now, I'm pretty sure that these are not actually Sarah. It looks a lot like her, but that's actually her mom. And I think that one is too. So I'm going to go ahead and grab those 3. And we're going to say that's Cynthia. These baby ones, I need to probably review those with my mom and take a look at the context. So let's go ahead and move on to another batch here. This was my great-grandmother, Hazel. I knew her as Meemaw. And I can just take a look through these images. And I'm pretty sure these are all her. The face recognition does an excellent job of grouping together all of these similar faces, but I do like to go through and just do a quick glance, make sure they're all the same person, and then I can click approve. And all of those faces just got tagged. It was that fast and that easy. And that's how you can go through and tag literally thousands of images very, very quickly. I do recommend that you go and you take a look at these because sometimes you can make mistakes. We're all human, but it's a really great way to get all of those pictures tagged. Let's see here. Looks like we have a couple of questions that have popped up. And let's see, Uncle Mike, if I wanted to add a story to a photo, where do I put in the info and where does it show up? Excellent question. So let me go ahead. I'm going to close out of the batch face tagging here real quick. And we're going to go into our all photos view. And let me grab this picture here of my Uncle Bruce. What I would do if I had a story is I would put that here in the description. Another thing you could do is if you have a very long story and you want to have a separate document for that, you could create a text file. So you'd use like text edit on a Mac, or there's many different free text editors, and create a .txt file. You can then call that the same as your file name here of your picture, and then save it in that same folder next to the picture so you know that that's related. So that's another way that you can do it. But if it's a shorter story, I would go ahead and put that here. I think that there's like 1,000 character or something limit in the description field. Don't quote me on that. I know it's not unlimited, but you can put a lot of information here into the description. All right, and then Lori says, are you connected with your parents in Mylio? Is he scanning files directly into Mylio or are you importing them? Great question, Lori. He has Mylio installed on his computer, and we have a folder on an external hard drive that is linked to Mylio. And as he's scanning images, he is moving them into that folder, which means Mylio is able to pick them up and they are syncing to my machine as that's happening. So we're able to work simultaneously on the same images. All right, perfect. So let's go ahead and move on to the next quick win that we have, and that's organizing by location. I kind of take this as a little bit later in the process because a lot of times, especially with historical photos, unless there is some recognizable landmark or you have a family home that you recognize, things like that, it can be really hard to track down where something happened unless somebody made those notes. So let's go ahead and take a look at how you can add GPS location information to historical photos. So of course it's automatically captured for a lot of our digital photos, especially those on our cell phones, but we do have to manually add or edit locations for those historical images. And you can do this with one image at a time, or you can select a group of images and add it. And it just helps you find things later based on where they happened. It makes them searchable by location, and it preserves some more of that historical context. So let's go ahead and take a look at that, what that looks like here. I'm going to go back here to my grid view. Oops, I didn't want to put that in the description. 1 second. There we go. Go back to my grid view and let's find some pictures here. I'm actually going to go into the folders. That's going to be a little easier. And I'm going to go a little bit later in life because then I know I can find something where I knew where it happened. So let's go here. I'm going to go ahead and scroll down, find some pictures here. Oh, this is a good one. I know that these were probably taken in, oh, maybe not. Let's see here. Let's find something else. Oh, Grand Canyon. This makes it easy. You can see the Grand Canyon here in the background. Let's go ahead and grab those. These here were obviously in Sedona. We can put locations on these very, very easily. So I'm going to go down here in the right column to the place section. And you can work with this little mini map here if you want to. I like to go ahead and expand that bigger. It just makes it a little bit easier. And then you can move this barrier here to make your map larger. And I'm going to go ahead and type in Grand Canyon. And let's see what this pops up with for me. And there we go. That's going to get us in pretty close. There's the Colorado River. I can zoom out a little bit here and get an idea here of where I want to pop this. So it's going to be, I don't know the exact specific coordinates where they were, but I know they were near the Grand Canyon. Obviously, you can see that here in the background. So I can then take these pictures and drag them onto the map. And we could pop them, maybe right about there. If you're happy with the placement, go ahead and click that checkbox. And those pictures now have GPS location information. We can then close this up and scroll down here. And under location shown, you can edit this information. So I can just say Grand Canyon. And that updates that information. So you can add and edit that information. It doesn't update your GPS coordinates. It just puts in a different location shown so we know what's happening there. Let's do that again with these ones here. We know this is Sedona because luckily it says right here on the back of the picture, Sedona, Arizona. Plus, you might recognize those rock formations there. So let's go ahead and do that one more time. I'm going to open up the map here. And let's go ahead and type in Sedona, Arizona. There we go. And I'm going to go ahead and grab those pictures and drag them onto the map. And let's just pop those right about there and hit OK. Close that back up. And we can go ahead and just say Sedona, Arizona, take that off of unnamed road. And we now have that information added to our library. And that's how you add location information to your historical pictures. It's just another way to preserve that context, preserve that history, and tell that story to the next generation. All right, let's see if there's any other questions. It does not look like it. Lori's been sharing some links, so thank you for that. All right, so Let's go ahead and talk about a few bonus tips, some of the best practices I've come across when adding this kind of metadata. So the other descriptive info that you might want to add, we talked about this a little bit with the question earlier, is what do you do if you have a story to tell? So there's the title field, you have your description and caption field, and you have your keywords. All of these fields give you a place to add additional information to preserve that story. So under your title, I would typically, if you have something to add there, just give it a short, meaningful summary of what's going on in the photo. Your caption and description is your place to tell the story in a longer form. Now, if you have an extensive story to tell with it, that's when I might attach a text file and keep that in your Mylio Photos library to preserve that additional information with that picture. And then additionally, keywords are individual words or phrases that you think you might use to later search for this image. So these are optional, but it does make searching a lot easier. You don't have to do it with every photo, but if there's something that's really important, it might be worth adding a little bit of extra context there as well. Additionally, as you're going through and working with your metadata, my biggest tip for you is to be consistent. So whatever formatting you use for any of these different fields, pick a format and stick with it. So with dates, you want to record the capture date for the picture as close as possible. Or if you're scanning in historical records, the record creation date. So I have some documents, historical documents in my library. If there's a date on that document, that is the date that I assign to that particular document. With names, I like to standardize how I format them. So we're going to do first, middle, and last. So you can see here in the picture, for myself, I've got my first name, middle name, my birth last name, and in parentheses, my married last name. That's the format I typically choose to use. And I do that because when you're working with ancestry and genealogy websites, they are typically going to go off of the birth name as well. If somebody has multiple married last names, you can put them in more parentheses. If someone has a nickname that they go by, you can put there in that first line here, Angela Louise, I could put in there with quotation marks, Angie. Again, if you have somebody with a suffix, a junior, senior, etc., I would put that here under the last name line. But whatever you do, just pick a format, stick with it, and that's going to make it a lot better for you going forward. And it's going to make your life a bit easier. There's not any one right way to do this. This is just the way that I do it. I found that it works really well, and hopefully you guys find that helpful. All right. So some of the key takeaways I want you guys to have moving out of this particular presentation is that taking the time to organize your scan family photos makes them easier to find and much more fun and enjoyable. You don't have to go sorting through things to find a specific image. You can quickly access them using dynamic search and quick filters in Mylio. When things are structured and labeled, preserving them is easier because you don't have things scattered all over the place. It makes sharing them more meaningful. You can create albums, you can create slideshows, printed keepsakes. You can create those shared albums in Mylio. Those are wonderful ways to share some of this media. And of course, Mylio makes this process much simpler than having things spread out across different devices and different folders, getting everything into one place. It's just such a benefit for you and your family to have these things organized and to be able to pass that information on to the next generation. So with that, I want to go ahead and open up the floor for questions. And I see we've got a few more things that have popped up into the chat. So let me go ahead and address those questions. Carol says, can you explain again how to create a text file and connect the text file? Yeah, absolutely. So let me jump back over here to Mylio, and I'm just going to open up an app here on my computer called Text Edit, which is built into the Mac operating system. I can say new document. And this is just a basic text file. So you can go ahead and type in or copy in whatever story you have, and it creates a .txt file. So let's call this family story. And I'm going to go ahead and save this as, let's say, let's see, where do I want to put this? Let's go ahead and put this, attach it to this picture here. I'm going to grab that file name. So save it as that same file name. And we're going to grab that. We're going to put that there. So save it as the same. And I'm actually going to take that A off the end because that's a different part there. And when we go ahead and save this, So save, and I'm gonna actually, let's do a save as real quick. Actually, it's not wanting, okay, I know exactly where it went. So let's find that in our file system. Give me just a second here. I go into my Finder, and under my iCloud Drive, I have a text edit folder, and there we go. There's that picture right there. I'm gonna actually just drag and drop that into my Mylio inbox, and we're gonna move that. And that's gonna go ahead and put that file into the Mylio inbox here in Mylio. So I'm gonna go to my top level. Let me take a look here at which folder I'm in here. This was the 2001, so the one where I was graduating, great. And let me go here to my top level, and the Mylio inbox. Hasn't pulled it in yet, but it will pull it in shortly. So I might actually need to turn on my support for, let's see, for documents. There we go. So Office documents, I think that should work. And once Mylio scans that folder, it will pull it in. It will be here in my Mylio inbox. And then from inside of Mylio, I can move it to that folder where it belongs. And I can change the date on it, and I can have it show up next to those other pictures. So Mylio is just being a little slow in bringing that in, so I can do that later. All right.
So
Harold says,
what was the very first thing that you did to get to the text editor?
I just opened up a search on my computer. You would go into the applications file on your computer. So I just did, on a Mac, you can do a Command Spacebar that opens up your search. And I just typed in text, and it pulled up text edit.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
So that's just in my, you'll find it in your applications or programs folder, something that has a text editor. All right. So Harold says, what's the status of Mylio recognizing the FML senior fields when they are set up in settings and showing them in the people names? So you can absolutely do that. You have additional fields in Mylio that you can enable to show the middle name, nickname, other last name, things like that. The reason I have that shut off in this account is those fields are only saved in the Mylio database. They are not saved in XMP. So if you are wanting to take that information and be able to have that portable somewhere else, you'll want to use just the first and last name fields. I'm hoping to have those other fields be saved into XMP soon. I actually just wrote up a feature request for that a couple of days ago. But for now, only the first and last name fields are saved to XMP. All right, so Jeannie, when I do facial tagging, the box of possible names pops up in front of the faces, so it's hard to see the faces. Even if I zoom in, the box is still in the way. Tips. Well, you already zoom in. That is typically my go-to trick for getting to those hard to reach faces. Let's go ahead and find something here. So let's get a group photo. Let's turn on that face tagging. So when you go ahead and click on one of these pictures, okay, so in this instance, I can't even hardly get to this one because those faces are so close together. So what I typically do is I will take that zoom slider and zoom way in and then be able to pan around the map. I would try just zooming in farther than you already have and see if that makes any difference. But that's my best tip, is to use that zoom slider on the right. And sometimes you have to get in really close to do that. All right. And Uncle Mike, does the info and description show in the metadata? Yes, it does. Description absolutely gets saved to metadata. All right. Any other questions for me today? I think I got everything. Lori, did I miss anything?
Nope, you got everybody.
Excellent. And I don't see any other hands up. Does anybody have any other questions today, even if it's not on the specific topic that we're covering? Y'all are welcome to ask any other questions you have. All right. Well, if there's nothing else, I want to wish you guys a wonderful weekend. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you guys enjoyed this session. It gives you a little bit of an overview of what we discussed at RootsTech and some of those presentations that I did there, and gives you some ideas on how to handle your own collection of historical family photos. Scanning in images is a lot of work, but it's a very, very rewarding process, and I just can't speak enough highly of it. I really enjoy it, even though it takes a lot of time to go through and add all of this information. So thank you again for joining me. Just a reminder, next week I will be on vacation, so there will be no live Q&A and no coffee break. I will be back the following week. Any questions that come up between now and then, please visit the community, community.mylio.com. You'll be able to post questions there. Lori will be keeping an eye on that. JC will be keeping an eye on that, and other members of our team. So you always have places to get help. With that, have a wonderful weekend, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye, everyone.